The Golden Hour Birth Podcast, a podcast about real birth stories and creating connections through our shared experiences.
Childbirth isn't just about the child. It's about the person who gave birth, their lives, their wisdom, and their empowerment.
We're Liz
And Natalie,
the Golden Hour Birth Podcast, and we're here to laugh with you,
cry with you,
and hold space for you. Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your co-host, Liz.
And I'm your co-host, Natalie, and tonight we have Elaine on. Elaine is one of my friends that I met through work. She's a mental health therapist in the St. Louis area. So thanks so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your family, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I'm married. My husband is Joe, and we have she's almost 20 months. She's about 20 months. And I am currently also pregnant with my second daughter. So she is due in September. So I'm about 29 weeks pregnant right now, which has been a little interesting. Being pregnant with a toddler is very different than being pregnant without a toddler. So I'm kind of in this season of adjusting and maneuvering. Natalie, you obviously just went through the transition of 1 to 2. So lots of anticipation about growing our family, lots of fears and anxiety and tears and guilt and all the things. But yeah, so that's kind of what my family right now looks like. Again, we're about to expand in September, and we're not really sure what it's going to look like.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's chaos, but also the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's what I've just been having. It's like every few weeks, I'm just like, oh, we can't have this baby. Like, she's not ready. We're not ready. She's not ready. I can't do it. When I get really overwhelmed, I'm like, then there's going to be another one. What does that look like? How is that going to work? So it's been a lot of and then I feel guilt for not, about this new baby, about not being, as, I guess, excited as I was about my daughter Quinn, because it's just, there's so much more to think about. So I don't know. It's been an interesting, kind of unexpected transition into growing the family that I wasn't fully anticipating. I think all the emotions. So yeah.
Yeah. I hear you on that. But knowing you, I know that you'll do an amazing job somehow balancing it all seamlessly.
Yeah. Low expectations.
There you go.
That's kind of just a lot of conversations and I spoke with a coworker, Natalie, you probably know Megan, and she was just like, look, you just got to weather the storm with her. She's going to react how she's going to react. And you just got to just sit there and weather it with her. And that's all you can do. And I was like, okay, I guess that'll work. So that kind of helped put things a little bit in perspective. So I just need to be there for her. So
I love that.
yeah,
Just a beautiful person.
she,
So if you want to go ahead and tell us when you found out about Quinn and what pregnancy was like.
yeah. So we, my husband and I got married in December of 2019. So we were kind of doing the whole thing of like, are we going to travel? Are we going to, before trying to have kids and live a little or whatever. And my husband had this weird thing of being a fun married couple. And I was just like, dude, I've peaked. Like, this is as fun as I'm going to get. Like, marriage is not going to suddenly make me more fun. So I think I was probably ready before he was, which, not to stereotype. I think that's kind of can be common. But so what I was kind of entertaining and like, yeah, we can travel in 2020 and do all the things. And as everyone knows, that didn't happen. So yeah, we kind of decided, I guess it was in October of 2020 when we realized things just weren't going to get any better. Why not start trying? So I got off the pill around then, and then we started trying probably in December. And I was pregnant in February. So we had I'm very grateful for that experience. It was about 3 months of trying. So I feel really lucky for that. And it was pretty peaceful for the most part. I mean, of course, there's always that like, what if, or the anxiety, but we both feel really grateful that we had a relatively easy experience, I guess. And so I got pregnant in February, found out I was pregnant in February. And then I hate telling people this because I just don't like telling people this, but it was just a really easy pregnancy. And I always feel bad sharing that it was an easy pregnancy. I did not have any sickness. I did not have any cravings. I did not have any like boob soreness. I mean, I just didn't have anything. And again, I feel very hesitant sharing that because I think that I know a lot of people don't have that experience. But for whatever reason, that was my experience. And it was just overall a really smooth pregnancy with her. There was nothing really of note. And then I would get kind of jealous of, this sounds weird too, but I would get kind of jealous of people that were sick because then their partners were like doting on them and stuff. And like doing the like, going out, buying their cravings or, I don't know, whatever that crap is we see on TV or in the movies. But I was just like, Joe doesn't have to do any of that. He's just chilling. Like, this is too easy for him. Like, I don't like this. So it was kind of this weird combination of really, really, really wanting to be cared for and wanting to be taken care of and wanting to be kind of doted on, but not having any of the physical manifestations of, sickness and all of those things. So then kind of feeling left out, but also grateful. So it was kind of a weird, I don't know, combination of feelings. And, but yeah, it was a smooth pregnancy, all around. It really was.
Yeah. My girlfriend who was super sick got a pasta maker. She was so sick.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. See, gifts and all that.
yeah.
I
don't know which one I want more.
Yeah, I know, right? And then this one too, has been like, pretty fine. Like I didn't have, again, any sickness. I had a little bit more cravings, maybe like occasional in the beginning, food aversions a little bit, but that's it. No real, what I would call sickness. No, now they're both girls. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But yeah, this pregnancy has kind of really mirrored Quinn's pregnancy, for the most part, all the way through. So yeah,
That's good.
apologies.
So
Craving, like, yeah, I really need some ice cream, like right now.
Yes, I just it's like just want to see how much you care, right?
Yeah, well, past it's 2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm craving like White Castle or something. And he'd be like, no, you're not. I know you just want that. Have the baby. Right.
so if you want to go ahead and share your birth story with Quinn.
Yeah. So again, very smooth birth. She was just really good to me. She really was. Gosh, I'm trying to think. So I had an appointment on Friday. My 1-week appointments were all scheduled on Fridays. And then I had a membrane sweep because I was due on Sunday, I think. No, I was due on Monday. So my appointment was Friday. I was due on Monday. And my doctor was actually out on maternity leave. So I was seeing a different doctor, and he was really cool. And on that Friday, he did a membrane sweep. And then he was just kind of like, it could help. It could not help. I don't really know. Maybe you'll go into labor in 12 hours. Maybe you won't. I'm not really sure. We'll see. And then I went home, and I remember we curb walked, you know, how you can put your foot, whatever, find a curb, walk, try and wiggle your pelvis, or I actually don't really know the reason. So I'm just I assume that's what it is, trying to wiggle the baby a little lower. And so we curb walked for a little bit. And then I remember that night I was up watching TV, and I'm just feeling some pressure. I'm like, huh. But then again, it's like I was, almost 40 weeks pregnant. That would make sense to feel some pressure. So, and then I woke up the next morning. I wasn't having contractions or anything, but like I actually still have the note in my phone of all my contractions timed. I don't ever delete it. But so I woke up, and probably like around 9:30, I was like, huh, that's kind of interesting. I'm kind of feeling something. And then it kind of progressed, and I was bummed because this was October 30th. And I was like, I do not want a Halloween baby because I can't stand Halloween. I hate themes. I hate costumes. I cannot have a Halloween baby. And as soon as I started having contractions, I'm like, this chick is coming on Halloween, and I am pissed. So I was kind of bummed about that because I was my whole pregnancy, I was like, she can come in any day but Halloween. Any time of Halloween, which is exactly why she decided to come on Halloween. So I labored at home. I got kind of nervous. So my doctor I actually went to grade school with, so I have her cell phone number. So I texted her and was like, should I head in? I'm having contractions. And she was like, yeah, no, you're good. You're going to want to wait. Because my water never broke either. She was like, you're going to want to wait until they're probably like, 5 minutes apart, and you're in some serious, serious pain, like not really able to walk. And I was really nervous as I tested positive for the bacteria. I can't remember. Do you guys remember what the
GBS?
GBS, yes. Yeah. So I was really nervous about like waiting too long and then not being able to get the antibiotics in time. But so then I just kind of showered. I let my parents know. And then I pretty much just labored at home. My contractions they would be 20 minutes apart, and then they'd be 10 minutes apart, and then they'd be 30 minutes apart. And then, so I never really knew kind of what was going on. And so it was finally like 6:00 at night, and I couldn't, they were maybe 6 minutes apart, and I couldn't walk through them. Like I was in some serious pain. And so we're like, why don't we just go in and check? And if they send me home, they send me home. Fine. So we went in, and they checked me, and I was 4 centimeters and about 80% effaced. So they were like, it's a go. We'll keep you. And then I had convinced myself for some reason that I wasn't going to get an epidural. And needless to say, that will not be the case this pregnancy, this delivery. But I just convinced myself, I was like, no, I'm not going to get an epidural. I don't need it, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what that, I do know. I think I just felt like I had something to prove for whatever reason. I'm not sure. And it was like, if other people could do it, I can do it. And so the OB came in, and he was like, okay, cool. We're going to keep you. And he's like, we'll come in and break your water, and then your real contractions will start. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. So this is not a real contraction. So what is happening for me here? And then I tried, I was like bouncing on the ball, thinking the ball was going to be like my savior. The ball did nothing for me. It did not help. I was not able to walk. I was like holding on to the hospital bed for dear life. And I know my husband's looking at me like, what are what are we doing? You don't have to do that. And he didn't say that, bless him, because he probably knows I would have just annihilated him. But he was just kind of like, I know he's just thinking, what are you trying to prove here? Like, what are you trying to do here? And so finally they came in and I was like, I gotta be like 9 centimeters, right? And they came in, they're like, okay, so you've progressed 1 centimeter. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I'm going to have to get the epidural. Okay. So, they came in, they gave me the epidural. It was like the best feeling I've ever felt in my life. Because too, when I was in so much pain, I was like, I hate my husband. I'm upset with my baby. That's not even here yet. I'm in so much pain. I'm crying. This is not the experience, that I pictured. And so I kind of had to just realize I was being competitive with no one because I don't think anyone really cares. And so, yeah, I got the epidural and it was amazing. And I FaceTimed all my family and it was a totally different experience. And then I just chilled. Things were good. And so that was around like 9 o'clock. So I got there at 6, got the epidural about 9 o'clock. And then at midnight, I turned on the movie Halloween because I was like, I guess I'm just going to lean in and accept this. So I was watching Halloween and kept feeling all this pressure. Pressure. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I should be feeling all this pressure with the epidural. Like, it feels like this baby's about to shoot out of me. And then so the nurse came back in and she checked me and she was like, oh, you're at 10 centimeters. She goes, can you do like a little push? And I did a little push and she's like, yeah, don't do that anymore. Okay. And so they called the doctor. Of course, it was like 1 a.m. So Quinn probably couldn't come at like 11:45 on October 30th. But she was like, no, I'm going to do Halloween at 1 a.m. And so the doctor got there and I also, no one tells you about the shakes during labor. Yeah, I had no idea. So I was like shaking and shivering and my teeth were chattering. And yeah, it was so surreal. And he came in and I pushed twice and then maybe a third time and she was out. It was like 3 minutes. And the doctor, I actually hadn't disclosed or hadn't told him I wanted to do this, but he was like, do you want to pull her out? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So once her shoulders were out, I was able to lean forward and pull her out and then bring her to me. And it was just a really smooth, easy birth. We got the golden hour. We were able to do that. And that was wonderful. Yeah, it was just so surreal. It was so surreal. And yeah, I'm just like thinking back, it was great. It was just a really good experience. I think the difficult part was, again, no one had told me about when they push on your uterus, whatnot. Yeah, I had no idea about that. So that was pretty painful. And then the blood pressure thing, because they were like, try and get some, and I'm like, this is going off like every 15 minutes. I confused on how I'm supposed to rest with this thing on my arm. But yeah, so I just had her, I laid with her for probably an hour. My mom was out there. I had some like post birth guilt about my mom waiting for so long which I mean, I've worked through it in therapy, but I had a lot of weird guilt about that of like, oh, I should have had her in there, but like, didn't want her in there. And then, just all of those things. So yeah, and then my mom came in at like maybe 3 a.m. And met her. This was the first grandchild period for my parents. So it was a pretty big moment. My dad couldn't come up. He was there, but he couldn't come up because it was still it was October of 21. So it was still kind of COVID protocols. Yeah, it took a while for the epidural to wear off. which was odd. Like one leg was working and one wasn't. And then I had a really rough recovery because I tore. So that was that. I remember being in the hospital and being like, yeah, this is awful. So it was like really great. And then it kind of going into, and I can touch on the recovery too, but going into recovery, it was pretty rough. That's my birth story.
Yeah. So what was postpartum like?
So postpartum was rough. So yeah, I went to the bathroom and then I thought something tore. I literally thought it like tore up. And I went to my husband and I was like, hey, you got to look at this. Like, as you guys know, there's no intimacy, nothing else too personal anymore. So he looked and he was like, oh, you got hemorrhoids. Like, yikes. Like, those are like, okay. They were terrible. I've never had a hemorrhoid before. It was awful. I couldn't, obviously, I could like kind of lay on my side, and I was also trying to nurse Quinn. So that was just really, there's a picture of us, of her and I, and like laying on my side, eating Shake Shack. She's like laid in front of me. And that was like the most comfortable I could get. And she was like 2 days old. So she wasn't latching from the side. It was really rough. And so that lasted a while, and I bled for a long time. I was in diapers for a long time. And yeah, I didn't feel prepared for that at all. Just the recovery aspect, the hormones and the just emotions. And it just was, and also going to and being alone with the baby while recovering. My husband, of course, didn't get paternity leave. So he took like a week, like maybe five days of his sick leave. So, and then he was in sales. So he was kind of like, he was able to be home a decent amount because he worked remotely, but then he would also have to go to meetings and stuff. It's like, he was commission based. So we kind of we didn't really have an option there for him, even had he wanted to. Well, I know that he wanted to, but meaning the option wasn't there for like an extended leave, financially. So, and I just remember going to the bathroom with Quinn and like laying her on the floor. I remember taking a picture. It was like my underwear was around my ankles. My baby was on the floor. There were just like postpartum pads and diapers everywhere, like a bloody tissue. And I remember sending it to my friends and being like, this should be an ad for postpartum, because postpartum is not blissful. It is not romantic. It is just, my mind was blown. So the physical recovery is rough. Emotionally, I would get really anxious around like 5:00, and because it was getting dark, and there was just something about, again, newborn noises, or even when she would sleep, she was making so many noises. So I was just up all night listening to her noises, and which of course was anxiety. So, and she's always kind of been a decent sleeper. So it was like, even though if she was sleeping well, I wasn't sleeping because I was just hearing all these noises. And so it was like around 5:00, every night I would start to cry, and we would go for walks, and I would just cry going for walks. And, cause it was like this like daunting thing, and it just felt like it was smothering me. And I think part of that too was I had to go on Halloween, as I said, and daylight savings was the next weekend. So it was like dark, and I'm looking forward with this baby. She'll be here early. I'm due September 8th. So she could even be here in August. And then that'll give me like a couple months of daylight. Like, I don't think I realized how important that was, that was. It was so dark so early. And that was just really difficult. So yeah, and then emotionally too, I think that, so I kind of dealt with that. That lasted for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, the crying. And then I feel like the first month, what does everyone say? They're like, you fall so in, it's like seeing your partner become a father or a parent. You just fall more in love with them every day. And I'm like, yeah, so that wasn't super true for me. I had some serious hatred for my husband. And he, like, the first month, I think it was kind of like that. Like, you're kind of like, oh, the sleepy newborn. And, she was sleeping a lot. Like, we would have to wake her up to feed all the things. And he, just watching him with her. I do think I experienced a little bit of that. But then when shit got real, I was like, oh no, I don't like him. I am hating him. I am mad at him, frustrated at him. And I know my husband's going to listen to this too, I'm sure, but which I would communicate to him. And I didn't realize until later I hadn't ever heard of postpartum rage. That was something, you hear about postpartum depression, you hear about postpartum anxiety. And I think I realized later on that I was dealing with postpartum rage. And because my husband too, he is wonderful. He just does all of the things. He does all of the dishes, all the pump parts. I haven't made dinner or anything since giving birth. Like, he makes all the dinner. He makes my lunches for work. Like, he makes Quinn's meals. He does it all. And I'm not saying that just to, I'm very lucky and I know that. But so even as he's doing that, I am just like, it almost made me hate him more because I didn't have a reason to be upset with him, but I felt so upset with him. Right. So it was like, oh, he's doing everything and he's cooking and he's cleaning. And all I have to do is not all I have to do because it's everything, but is, I was nursing exclusively. So like I was the primary caretaker. I was doing all the feedings. I didn't introduce a bottle to Quinn until she was maybe 5 weeks. So I was doing all the things. And so not to diminish that, but he was managing the household. He was running everything. And I think it just pissed me off more because I was like, it'd be easier if you just weren't doing anything because then my feelings would be valid. And I just remember him saying like, I just feel like you hate me and I don't know why. And I was just like, I don't know why either, but I do. Like, I feel so much like resentment that you didn't give birth, resentment about like your body not changing, your identity not shifting, which, and no, his identity did shift, obviously, but I was just like, I like can't reconcile how different my experience is with yours. And yeah, I was just, I mean, I remember opening a cabinet and like, I think Natalie, I might have told you this, but part of our food processor fell off and hit me in the head. And for some reason that was my husband's fault. And I remember walking around our house looking for stuff to like bash him about. I mean, I was just like in a rage spiral. And, I can't be rageful towards my baby. So I'm just going to be rageful towards my husband. And he would tell me that. He'd be like, I can see you looking for stuff. I see you doing that. Like, I can see that you're doing it right now. You're looking for stuff to like criticize me about and hurt me about. And yeah, so it was brutal. It was a very hard time in our relationship. It was very just intense. And it took probably, I think that like those big feels towards him stopped maybe around 5 or 6 months. So it was a fair amount of time. But we just communicated about it. Like I said, he's great. It would frustrate him, of course, because he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't deserve this, but like, I guess I kind of have to take it. I don't know. Neither of us really, really knew what was happening. But he was a trooper, and we would be lost without. I just wrote in his Father's Day card. I was like, we would be lost without you. Truly, like he is my rock, Quinn's rock. He just kind of holds our life together, and because it's chaotic, and so I look back on that time and I feel guilty and I feel nervous for this next transition again. But yeah, I think to the postpartum rage, I've through therapy, I'm a therapist, but I'm also in therapy. And I've gone to some perinatal trainings, and it's essentially just like a feeling of anxiety, right? It's a branch of postpartum anxiety. And I think for me, the anxiety piece was overwhelm. And I was in school at the time, finishing my master's. So I was like 2 weeks postpartum in virtual classes. So I didn't really take a leave. I was finishing up assignments. I was writing papers. I was taking tests. And so it felt like, like if Quinn's not going down for a nap, it's not just like, oh, she's not going down. It's she's not going down. I have a 12-page paper to write. And then who can I take that out on? My husband. So who I can't take it out on my teacher. I can't take it out on my classmates. But my husband's here, and I can just like, he's someone I can release on, which wasn't fair. But yeah, so I think my rage that I felt, which I again had never really heard about, was just this kind of arm off of postpartum anxiety that for me was rooted in just overwhelm. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to keep up, and all that.
Yeah. What do you think changed at that 5-6 month mark?
I think it was a combination. So I was still working because I had her in October. I graduated in December, and then I started my job in January. So I was still working, but I think I don't really know, honestly. I think my hormones probably leveled out. And also, Quinn started napping at 5 months, like more consolidated naps, 5 or 6 months. So it was like, I think at that age, I don't know. Well, actually, Natalie, you probably know I'm trying to think, 2 naps at that age, maybe 3, 2.
Yeah. We're on a 3.
Yeah. So maybe 3 naps, but she was napping she was on a 40-minute nap for so long, which would just kill me. It was like 40 minutes on the dot. I don't know if her sleep cycle was just 40 minutes. I don't know what was happening there.
Yeah.
But then she started sleeping longer. So then she was sleeping longer. And so then I was able to dedicate just more time to my career and actually getting things finished. When I know everyone's sleep when the baby sleeps, that just wasn't realistic for me. It just yeah, you guys are shaking your head. It's just not a realistic thing.
Yeah.
So it actually did help when she would sleep, and I could dedicate time to doing notes and at that time too, the big assignments were over, right? So I wasn't writing papers. I wasn't studying for finals. I wasn't studying for tests. All of that was finished. So I think it was a culmination of just the school being over, and Quinn also started daycare at 4 months, which bless daycare.
Bless it.
Bless it. It is such a gift. I realized that was another thing. I realized very quickly I could not be a stay-at-home mom because it is just relentless and it is 24/7. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, Mom, we got to back pay you. what in the world? How did you do this? I don't understand. It's amazing. And I just couldn't, I could not, I can't do it still. And I just realized I had to really come to terms with that. It wasn't going to be something I could do. And because again, it's 24/7. It is 24/7. So, Quinn started daycare. So I think it was, as I repeat myself, it was school being over, Quinn starting daycare, Quinn napping more so that I could use that time to get more finished. And I think just getting into more of a routine. We started going out more. I have a sister in town, and it was like we just kind of really committed to once a month doing something, and kind of, having a support system locally has been huge. And so, yeah, and we just talked a lot. I think I probably over communicate my feelings, which I think can probably drive him nuts a little bit, but he always knows where I'm at. So
It's the therapist in you.
it's the therapist in me. And that's the thing. I'm like, I'm a therapist and I am running around raging on like, I got to get a grip, but I couldn't. I couldn't. And so, yeah, that was also an interesting, and I see couples. I'm also a couples therapist. So I'm like, I am not following anything that I am preaching in my dating.
So true.
It's so true. So that was also, which I still sometimes do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never recommend this in therapy, but it is, we're all human. So yeah, so it was around 5 or 6 months. Those things kind of helped to shift us out of it. And I think going into it this next time, we'll be more prepared. It's not going to be easy by any means, but I'll have 3.5 months off with no work, no school, no. So I'm kind of interested to see how that shifts my experience too. If it'll be similar, if it'll be different in that sense. So yeah, that was kind of my postpartum experience.
Yeah. Were you seeing a therapist during that time?
Yes. So I got back. Okay. So I had a Quinn on Halloween, and then I was back in therapy. I remember having to bring Quinn, probably December. So I took maybe like a month and a half off. And that helped too. Totally. And my therapist she's grown kids now. But I think in some things, like, so when I do therapy with postpartum moms, couples, I self-disclose way more than, because, for people listening, I'm not sure who knows, but self-disclosure as a therapist is kind of like people are like either against it or for it. How helpful is it? And I find that with postpartum parents or pregnant parents, super helpful. So I self-disclose because everyone just wants to feel connected and feel heard and understood. And so I self-disclose more in those scenarios with those types of clients than I do with anyone else. And my therapist started doing that, right? Where she was just like, yeah, I remember this. And again, her kids are in their 20s, but she's like, I remember this, and oh my gosh, and this, and yeah, and my husband, I could swear, Elaine, he would never see he can't see crumbs. Like he's like, oh my gosh, he's just driving me nuts. He's doing that. And it was so helpful. It was so helpful. And she kind of helped me sift through feelings of, because I was like, I don't feel depressed. Like I don't feel like my joy is outweighing my rage or sadness. And I don't feel particularly anxious really, because it's not so much like I'm not able to sleep at night, or I'm not able to take her out in the car, like, or I don't feel like going anywhere with her. It was like, I don't feel dread. I don't feel, so it was kind of, she helped me kind of label what was happening, which was just rage. And then again, the more I studied it, I was like, oh, so this is connected to anxiety in some way. And yeah, so just talking to her about it, and she was, I mean, we would literally make lists. She's like, what do you need to feel like you are being helped, have help, all the things. And so that was, I could kind of take those home and, read through them, and in some ways try and communicate that with my husband too. Like, okay, I think I can kind of identify what I'm needing. We hired someone because I was, like I said, working too. We found a woman who cleaned houses for super cheap. And so we had her start coming once a month. I was like, okay, we can swing this once a month. And that was like a savior, because it just, all the like deep clean, like I can do all the clutter, and my husband can do all the clutter and the dishes, but like deep cleaning, I would just look around and see dust but it's like between working, and he's working full time, I'm working full time, the baby, like where is the time? And so we found someone that was just really cheap, and that was a game changer too. And so that came from my therapist. She's like, there's some things that just you don't have to feel guilty about. You need help. You have to have help.
Yeah.
And so she kind of was really instrumental in shifting me more into like, I can ask for help mindset. So
yeah. Outsourcing is well in postpartum.
yes, completely. And it's so hard to ask for. I think now this time, I think I'm going to be asking too much. People are going to be like, okay, stop. But yeah, she was wonderful at just kind of pushing me to like, it's okay. You don't have to, because I'm a middle child. So I was always just like kind of do my own thing, and independent, and I had my shit together, and I got this, and no one needs to worry about me. And it's like, yeah, that is no longer the dynamic. Like, I need someone to worry about me. I need someone to help me. I need someone to pick up the slack and just be there. And again, my partner, my husband, has been amazing with that. But even he's like, he has an end of the rope too. Like neither, like he needs to rest too, both of us. So that was a huge, huge help.
Yeah.
Big time.
I feel like every postpartum mom should be set up with pelvic floor therapy and mental health therapy.
Yeah.
Like these two things, they keep coming up in the podcast, and like,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredibly important and beneficial. I mean, you see the benefits. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The last time we met, you shared this like brain mapping of moms. Can you share a little bit? Because I just found that like so interesting, but it's been like, I don't know, 2 months now. I like totally forgot it.
Yeah, no. So I actually have a picture of it. I actually pulled it up because I knew you would ask that, but I don't know the lingo or the words, but basically, so I'm going to credit them. Sentimano Counseling is a like perinatal, I mean, they're amazing. They're located in Kansas City, and their just main clientele is people experiencing pregnancy, experiencing loss, experiencing infertility. They're just an absolutely amazing resource for people just trying to have kids, and they're great. So in March, I went to this training that was, as a professional, was amazing for me to inform my practice, but also I think I told Natalie too, like I was on the verge of tears the whole training because I felt so seen and I felt so understood, and basically I didn't realize how much the brain changes once you have baby. Like your brain actually changes. And one of the coolest things that they said in the training was like, you can do an MRI of a parent and a non-parent and say, oh, this one's the parent, because their brain is so freaking different than the non-parent. And I'm just like, and especially for the mothers, that shift, there's a bigger brain change with mothers than there is if your partner is male. And then the way it works for like in heterosexual relationships, the male, his brain can change, but at a slower rate. And only if he's spending like a fair amount of one-on-one time with the child. So men do experience brain changes, but not like the female does. And so there were 8, I'm trying to pull it up here. There was a picture of the actual like 8 spots that are 8 areas of the brain that changed. If I can't pull it up, it's fine. But yeah, it was just kind of, it was just a mind blowing. And then it was talking about grandparents too, and like the importance of having grandparents in a child's life. And then the ratio of people that you want in your life per kid. So it's like you want, and it doesn't have to be grandparents. It can be just any positive influences, but the ratio is like 6-to-1. So for every one child, you want 6 positive, not parent, but adult relationships that can positively influence your kid.
Well,
And so it was just like the coolest. It was just the coolest. And so then the biggest part for me was because I also realized here it is. So the key brain regions. So it's the amygdala, which I think is like the most common one talked about, right? So the amygdala changes, which is the alarm detection too. So like that for me is like, I'm a monitor checker still. And like, I like zoom in on Quinn, make sure she's breathing. It's like essentially the way that they phrase it is like our danger centers as moms are always on alert. Like we're always looking for danger. And so like physiologically, a mother will respond to a baby crying in a totally different way than they will to a baby laughing. So like it's great when a baby's giggling, right? But like that's nothing compared to the experience that we have when a baby is crying. Whereas a person without kids, they respond more to a baby laughing than a baby crying. And so it's because that danger zone, you're just like constantly looking, we're constantly surveying for danger at all corners. And so that was really eye-opening too, because I'm like, is something wrong with me? Right? Like, why am I always looking for worst case scenario? Or like if Quinn was crying a lot one night, I'd come out and get my trusty Google out, get my phone out, like Googling, why is my baby crying? Is there a tooth coming in? Her lip is red, whatever. My husband's like, why don't you just relax? I'm like, oh, that must be so nice to be to be able to relax. Oh my gosh, how amazing for you. But now I realize it's because like my brain, my danger zone is so much bigger now that it's just like flashing. So, and I also know like he doesn't have that same experience. I mean, like physiologically, he's not having that same experience. So, I think it was eye-opening for me too, of knowing that like, yeah, he spends a lot of one-on-one time with men. So I know that he has changed, but like, oh, we have different brains now too. Like our brains don't function in the same way.
Mhm.
So the amygdala, and then there's the motivation and reward center changes, the affect regulation and appraisal of negative emotion, the appraisal of actual danger and decision making. Our emotional expression capacity has changed. Our interpretation of others' emotional states have grown. So just like more in tune, more intuitive. but yeah, so there's, I think that I said 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So 8 regions of our brain after having a baby have totally changed. And that was like such, I just had the biggest lump in my throat during that training because it made sense. It made me feel less, I don't like to use the word crazy, but it made me feel less like, is it just me? Is this just, am I the only one scouring this monitor at night? Right? Am I the only one not able to sleep, even though my kid's sleeping through the night? Am I, which is kind of ebbed and flowed. Like my anxiety with that stuff is kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit, but yeah, so it was the coolest. It was an awesome training. Again, that's Sentimano Counseling. If anyone is in Kansas City listening, but they're fabulous. They're a wonderful resource. They're on Instagram too, and you could follow them there. And they have a lot of good posts. And but yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. And again, the MRI thing I shared was mind blowing to me because it's like it's proof. Like you can see this happening. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And it's honestly this training I went to, it's like, along with pelvic floor therapy, along with mental health therapy, it's like having a training like this of what happens to you postpartum and just in your body and in your brain. And how amazing would that be? Because again, like it's hard to also have access to all this therapy and mental health and which is, I guess, part of the problem. We should just have access to it. So yeah, having something like this is, I just went to this in March. So I was like maybe 13 weeks pregnant with this baby. And I'm like, if only I'd had this, 15 months ago, like I had no idea. I've been a mother for 15 months. So it was awesome. I'm thrilled I went. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish there was more education on not only, the mental aspects of becoming a parent, but also, the physical. Like there's just so much that we just don't know. And we are 50% of the population. And I don't know the percentage exactly, but a lot of us are having babies and there's just a lot lacking.
Yeah, I think in this podcast alone, I've said, no one told me like 10 times. There's so much stuff that no one tells you, that you're going into this life-changing, identity-shifting thing, completely blind almost, it feels like.
Yeah. And then we're to like not act like parents at work. Yeah, it's just the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a saying, it's like you're supposed to parent like you don't work and work like you're not a parent or something, which resonates so much for me because I'm just like, how did that work?
Yeah. Yep. I think I was like telling like Liz just a little bit about like your story and stuff 2 nights ago when we were on another recording, and I was like, I think I like definitely had some sort of rage. Like when she wouldn't sleep, I would I would feel my body just like go nuts. And Liz was like, I don't know if like I had rage, but I was just constantly irritable. And then I was like, I just pulled out a chunk of hair during that podcast. Like there's just so much. Postpartum is wild. It's so wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's like that, the rage feeling of just like being consumed and also just not being able to stop the feel. Like it just felt like this big wave of just emotion and frustration and then just always being irritable or just not being, gosh, I can just picture so many times my husband walking through the door and me like shoving the baby in his arms, like, you take her, and doing stuff like that. Like, oh, you were at work lucky, even though we agreed that he was going to work, right, financially. So it just, yeah, this like irritation and then irritation too at your baby, right? And then it's like 20 minutes later, you feel guilty because you were so frustrated at your baby. But like babies are frustrating, right? So it's okay. But then there's this also guilt attached to it. And yeah, it's very layered. It's so layered. Yeah.
Guilt doesn't, it goes, like you said, it ebbs and flows, and it doesn't really get easier. It just changes kind of a lot. And like, I feel like with my toddlers, well, 4 and 2, they are now. And the other day I just remember telling my husband, like, it was after a really tough bedtime. I just don't like them right now. Like,
Totally.
so bad to say.
Wow. It's not that.
I don't like that today.
Yeah. It's not bad.
Well, okay. My husband texted me tonight because I was working late, and he was like, "She fucking sucks at dinner time." But she does.
Thing. Yeah. I feel like I've said that to Sam like over 10 times. I'm like, this just sucks. Like, how is he growing? He doesn't eat.
Nothing. They don't want to eat. They don't want to.
Yeah.
Including like she just is like, she shoves everything out of the way, and then she'll pick something out, but then she doesn't want it, or she'll like open it, but then she doesn't want it. Like she's frustrated. It's just like, oh, she's just like so exhausting at dinner time. It's exhausting. But then I was, just, yeah, you hang out with them, and then they do something cool, or they smile, or they,
Yeah.
so it's
It's
I
hard. It's hard to be mad at them when they do cute things.
I know, but at bedtime's brutal. Dinner's brutal. It's just like, it's just really up and down. It's really hard. It's really hard. And sometimes you could say like they're being little jerks. Right. And I'm not really feeling that.
Yeah.
Right. It's okay.
It happens.
Yeah.
But do you have anything you want to add, or any advice, or?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the only thing that I would probably add is like, if you can, seek some therapy. I highly recommend it. Prenatal, postpartum, as couples. I think, I have this couple, they just had a baby, and when we really did a lot of work, which I think would help a lot of couples around just like boundary setting. So we would literally just come up with like, what are your boundaries? What are your boundaries about even just like for guests coming over, or for household stuff? I mean, whatever wasn't, they had certain stuff that was important to them, and some family dynamics they were working through too. But it was like, it was very, preparatory. Is that the word? Like preparatory. And then also we were talking about, their fears and anxieties. And I think this was a heterosexual couple, but hearing the male perspective was really eye-opening too. And for men too, like I see a guy now who's a parent to a child right around Quinn's age, and he's just like, I don't know how to be a good parent. Like, am I a good parent? Am I doing enough? How do I work through my stuff to make sure that that I'm a great parent for her? And so it's men, it's women, it's couples, it's all people. But I think going somewhere where you can share and vent, and to a third party, I think it's wonderful. So if the access is there, I would highly recommend that. I think therapy can be really beneficial for people in all stages of pregnancy, postpartum, relationship dynamic. So
Yeah, I agree.
Couldn't agree more. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And just like really appreciate all the goodness you brought of like the therapy world and yourself being a therapist, and like how that all helped you kind of just overcome the postpartum phase because it's a doozy.
It's a doozy. You guys will have to have me back on after the second one.
Yeah.
I'll update you. We can put my husband on too.
Oh,
We can do it.
that would actually be awesome. Just like I would love to hear his point of view.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he would. He would probably be very open to doing that because it's such a different perspective. But it's like I don't know. It's so interesting. But yeah, maybe we could do that after we shift into this. Well, maybe give me 5 months because I will probably did something at. But so maybe like 5 months postpartum.
Yeah. Okay. Text me.
We can do a couple sessions. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
For our listeners, you can are you
add
Instagram or anything, or is that
So no, I should be. I have a professional account that I don't use, but maybe this will be my push to use it. But I'm at Terrace House.
okay?
So if they want to, Terrace House is an Instagram, so they can look up Terrace House to find me. But yeah.
Well, you can find her at Terrace House. And maybe she'll start an Instagram.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I get real super uncomfortable with social media.
Yeah. And we'll see you next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion and found it insightful and beneficial. Remember, the Golden Hour Birth Podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you appreciate the content we bring you each week, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform or sharing the show with your friends and family. Your support helps us reach more people and continue creating valuable episodes. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, www.goldenhourbirthpodcast, or connect with us on social media. We value your feedback and want to make sure that we're delivering the content you want to hear. Before we sign off, we'd like to express our gratitude to our incredible guests who joined us today. We are honored that they trust us enough to be so open and vulnerable. We're grateful for their time and willingness to share their stories with us. If you're interested in taking the conversation further with us, join us on our Facebook group, The Golden Hour Birth Circle. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to tune in. Until then, stay golden and remember to take care of yourself. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. Bye!